I am Charity Everett, and I want to talk to you about AR for dot connecting and data storytelling in the real world for emotional impact. So what is data storytelling? It's a way to make sense of our mountains of data. Just in the last 2 years, 90% of all of the data that was ever produced was actually created. It's a way to connect people emotionally to what's being presented, and a way to drive impact and outcomes through engaging people in a way that connects humans naturally with storytelling. Out of all of the 2.5 quintillion bytes of data that are produced every day, less than 0.5% is actually being utilized. That means that we're collecting all of this data and it's just sitting around, and it's not actually out there in the world, and it's not actually connecting with people. So why storytelling in data? As we heard before, as human beings, we're hardwired to think in stories. If you think about the first way that we communicated with one another, it was, epic poems, and it's the way that we make sense of the world. So mere data on its own can fail to connect with people. And to display that, I actually want to show you an example here. So let's look at this chart of the actual square miles and land mass of the 7 continents of the world. So we may look at this and we see, okay, Asia is 16,921 square miles, but does that have more impact, or does this have more impact? Showing a majority of the countries of the world actually fitting comfortably within the borders of Africa with room to spare. So why is it that this image is so much more impactful than this? Because if you really stop and think about it, right, it's the same kind of data that's being represented. Like we're seeing the numbers, we're seeing square miles, it's right there in front of us. But this has kind of an inherent, it makes sense inherently when you look at it. Like you can look at it and you can very clearly see the United States there, and you can see how it fits. And us being in the US and just being a westernized country, we see the US as being such a center of the world, and it doesn't even take up half of, or the majority of the top half of it. And you see other things, like you see Eurasia, you see India, and as you look at it more, it starts to kind of unfold a story for you that you might not have even realized was there, about preconceived notions that you might not have even realized you had. So, why AR for data storytelling? We know that data visualization is important. We know that connecting the data to stories is a way to make it more effective. But what specifically about the medium of AR would lend itself to this? Well, real-world representation allows for greater emotional impact. As human beings, not only are we hardwired for stories, but we feel more connected to things that we feel like we've experienced ourselves. And when we experience something in virtual reality or augmented reality, our brain doesn't really see the difference between the two. Experience is experience. And that's part of the reason why we have such a hard time caring about people on the other end of the planet. We think of them in a kind of in-group, out-group. We kind of tend to other them. We don't really see ourselves in their shoes because we don't really see them inhabiting the same space, the same reality, the same world that we do. So I'm going to show you another example, just looking at numbers and looking at data. So we have the total landmass of Africa at 11.73 million square miles. We have the total landmass of the moon at 14.6 million square miles, right? So, I mean, you might look at that and go, okay, that's kind of interesting, but is that impactful, or is this impactful? Actually seeing what Africa would look like overlaid on top of the moon. And while that might be more impactful, this is probably more impactful still. Actually being able, sorry, I had a video, but we have to have this low quality GIF. But more impactful still, actually being able to see it wrapped around the moon in your space, where you can move around it, you can resize it, you can make it bigger or smaller, you can place it. You can start layering in more types of data about it and learn more about the moon and learn more about actual square miles and anything going forward. So let's connect some more dots. So all of us kind of generally have the idea of, where the human race started, right? Like we all kind of know, we were taught in school, human race started in Ethiopia. We traveled along the land bridges, and then through hundreds of thousands of years of migrational drift, we ended up where we are now. Sure, I mean, that's something that most of us, generally, hopefully all of us, were taught. But is that something that actually connects with us on a personal level? Like, is that something that you actually feel down in your core, that these people on the other end of the planet, no matter how different they look from you, no matter how different they may seem from you, their differences really literally all came down to a couple of choices. And the main one being which direction your ancestors decided to start walking in, and how long they decided to keep walking before they decided, yeah, this seems about right. Like really, it's not that deep, and at the same time, the fact that it's not deep is that deep. And so what if we could actually create an experience that puts somebody in those shoes where they're making that choice of, am I walking to the left or am I walking to the right? And based on that, what haplogroup am I ending up in? And based on that, what is my actual genetic makeup right now? We can do that. We can do that with XR, absolutely.
Sinditiwa iai ndimakukunda Sinditiwa iai ndimakukunda I'm keeping your heart in mind. 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 Just like you were yesterday.